Ναι, live.
Good morning from Athens and welcome to the Media Roundtable with Basketball Champions League CEO Patrick Komninos. As all of you know, due to the circumstances, this is a socially distanced media roundtable, which means that there is no media representatives physically present here in the room with us. So we are receiving questions from the accredited media to the event through our WhatsApp group. Welcome, Mr. Komninos. Thank you for being here, and thank you for taking the questions of the accredited media at this very particular media roundtable we have organized here. Can I please ask you for an opening statement and your impressions so far of this historic, one way or the other, final eight of the Basketball Champions League 2019-2020?
First of all, it's my pleasure to be here. As rightly said, in unique circumstances, and I think it is one adjective that characterizes this event and what we have all lived over the last months has been unique, has been exceptional, has been once in a lifetime event with the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on not just the BCL but the entire sports industry. So we have been approaching this event in a committed way to finish it, to conclude the season, to offer to all clubs the opportunity to be crowned as champion of the 2019-2020 season. And we do hope that on Monday morning, when the event is behind us, when everything is concluded, we would be in a position to still be talking about a unique, about an exceptional event, but for all the right reasons linked to the organization and to the delivery. So we are 75% of the way into the conclusion. We still have 2 games left, but obviously the 2 most important games as the gold, silver and bronze medals are on the line. So we still have a long way ahead of us in terms of what needs to be delivered, but so far I have to say that the feedback that I receive, because at the end of the day our own satisfaction or our own impressions are directly linked to what we receive from our stakeholders, whether these are the clubs or other entities directly involved in the competition. And so far we have received very positive feedback. So we treat this again with an element of great pleasure, but aware that we still have 2 very important games to deliver tomorrow.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the questions we have received from our accredited media. Can we please have the first question to Mr. Komninos?
Okay, the first question came from Artem Komarov from the Steel blog in Russia, talking about the new season. EuroLeague president said they have a plan B. In case the situation gets worse, does the BCL have a plan B?
Well, the BCL had a plan B, which was executed last week. Of course, when the season started, when we did our draw back in the middle of July, we were aware of the situation. We were monitoring everything very closely. We had a start date for our competition on the 13th of October, but as any organization, so did the BCL have a plan B, which we put in place last week when we announced that we would be changing the format of the competition, for certainly linked to the regular season, moving from the traditional model of 4 groups of 8 teams into a new model of 8 groups of 4 teams. So what this plan B allows us to do is have a level of flexibility, have a little more breathing space in terms of organizing games of the regular season. We have moved from 224 games of the regular season to 96 games of the regular season. So this decrease in the number of games, of course, decreases the number of trips that clubs have to make, decreases the logistical challenges in organizing games, and I think gives us all a little bit more flexibility and optimism, because as I've always said, it's not about starting the season, it's about concluding the season. All competitions, one way or the other, will commence. The key principle for us is to provide the necessary guarantees to our clubs, to our stakeholders, to our partners, that we have put something in place that allows us to be more optimistic about concluding the season. Nobody knows what the future holds. Nobody has a crystal ball. I think that's what COVID-19 has taught us, but at least with the implementation and execution of our Plan B, we feel that we have taken at least one step in providing answers to the question, how do you plan to conclude the season?
Thank you. The next question is in Greek. We'll read it out first in Greek and then translate it into English. Αν είστε ικανοποιημένος από τον βαθμό συνεργασίας της διοργάνωσης με τους ελληνικούς δημόσιους φορείς και αν τελικά συμφωνείτε με την απόφαση για μη παρουσία φιλάθλων στο ΆΚΑ. So the question is, are you satisfied with the cooperation we had with the BCL and with Greek authorities? And at the end, do you agree with the decision that was made to not have fans present at the Nikos Kalis Olympic Stadium?
Whenever we organize an event such as the BCL Final Four, or from a more global point of view, the Intercontinental Cup that we have organized in the new format over the last years, whether this was in Rio de Janeiro or in Tenerife, we always seek and require and rely on the collaboration and the support of the local authorities. It is not possible to organize an event of this magnitude without having local support. So that is an application in all competitions. I think every organizer collaborates with state authorities for a number of reasons, a number of facilities that need to be implemented in this process. So of course, we had to do the same exercise with the Greek authorities, probably more so than in other cases because of the COVID-19 situation, which requires additional protocols to be put in place in order for the event to take place. And these protocols are not linked to sport, but they are linked to public health and safety. So of course that's something that falls within the domain of the local government. So we have had extensive and very good collaboration with the authorities, but again, this is done mainly through the host of the event, which is I Basketball Club. We, in our, let's say, structural approach, we are the event organizers and the club is the event host. So the host is the one that has the more direct collaboration with the Greek authorities in this case, or with authorities in their respective countries, because they are the ones directly linked to the daily business. My feedback or my understanding is that ICE has worked very closely with the local authorities, and that has allowed us to execute this event in the best possible manner. And in this environment where special exemptions or derogations are required for organizing the event, for allowing flights to land into the country, for allowing movement, for allowing us to have this sort of accesses applied here. I think the collaboration has been exceptional, and I also want to take this opportunity to thank all the relevant governmental agencies that have supported us in this event. And we also saw that the Minister of Sport, Mr. Avgenakis, attended the first game of this BCL Final 8 at the venue and contributed in the opening game. So for us, this is a very good and essential partnership. Now, on the second half of the question regarding fan attending the game, as I said, when we announced the hosting of the event by the city of Athens and by IBC back in September, 2nd of September, I said, as is the case for all sports organizations, that attendance of fans is an exclusive decision of the state authorities. They are entrusted with the obligation to make decisions based on scientific facts, based on recommendations from the relevant committees in the country, and at the end they take the final decision, which has to be respected by all. So we did have discussions on the subject of fans, but we fully respect that the measures that have been applied in the region of Attica, in the city of Athens over the last weeks, the strict restrictions when it comes to congregation of large crowds does not allow for any fans to be in the arena, and we fully respect that. And I believe that as we move into this new environment of COVID-19 games taking place, every organizer, every club has to adhere to the rules and regulations that are put in place by the respective governments, and this is exactly what we're doing here.
Thank you. Next question, please.
This one came in from Spain. How satisfied are you with the development of the Final Eight, and is FIBA considering Valencia for the next Windows bubble? That question is from Jose Ramon Alba from At the Buzzer.
Okay, I will touch on the first point. I think, as I said in the introduction, the satisfaction that we have, and again, we have to wait for the event to conclude, but the level of satisfaction that we have is entirely linked to the feedback that we have from our clubs, and especially speaking to the Spanish clubs, and we have had 3 of them here at the Final Eight. We have Burgos that is playing now in the final. We have Zaragoza that is playing for the 3rd place game, and we had Tenerife that played for the quarterfinals. So we had a very extensive representation from the ACB. And speaking to all the 3 clubs, it was very well received. We currently have also the General Director of the ACB here, Mr. Calleja, Joan Roca, the Director of Competition. So the ACB is very well represented here, and our collaboration with Spanish clubs remains exceptional. The fact that this year alone we had 8 different Spanish clubs apply to participate in the Basketball Champions League is indicative of the interest that the BCL now generates in Spain, but also of the great collaboration we have with the ACB. So again, the feedback that we have is linked to what we receive from the clubs, and at least on that point we feel that the event so far has been well appreciated. The second question relating to the windows, that's something that is decided by the board of FIBA Europe, so it's not something that falls within the realms of the Basketball Champions League. So of course there will be a relevant decision about the hosting of the events in November in due course.
Thank you. Next question. Next up is another question in Greek, so we will read it first in its original language and then translate. It's from Vasilis Skoutis. Αισθάνεστε ότι το BCL κερδίζει όλο ένα και περισσότερους πόντους στη συνείδηση του κοινού, και αν και εφόσον είναι γραφτό να μην διευκολυνθεί το χάσμα με την Ευρωλίγα, πιστεύει ότι μπορεί και πότε να καταστεί ισότιμος αναγωνιστής της Ευρωλίγας? So the question has 2 parts. First part is, do you feel like the BCL is gaining in acceptance and recognition from fans, from the public? And the second part is, if the rift with the EuroLeague, that's the word that the journalists are using, is destined to never be breached, do you think, and when this will happen, that the BCL will be an equal competitor to Europe?
Okay. Again, when we talk about fan reaction or fan approval, I think the numbers speak for themselves. What we see on the fan engagement on our social media platforms, what we see in terms of the reactions to our recent activities. Obviously, we cannot talk about fans voting with their feet by coming to the games, so we have to rely, at least now, on secondary sources. But what we have seen, as I said, over the last months, since we have started planning the new season, has been very promising, very satisfactory. The reaction of the fans when it comes to what we offer to them, both in terms of live content but also additional support, has been very well received. And I think also what can be described as the team composition or the participation of clubs in the Basketball Champions League has given fans a very clear message from our side that the BCL's mission to continue to grow, to continue to improve, and to continue to represent as many clubs and as many leagues around Europe as possible is coming into reality. Let's not forget that this coming season 2020 to 2021, we have a record of 18 different leagues being represented in 18 different countries being represented in the Basketball Champions League, and that is a record that has not been seen in Europe for almost a quarter of a century. So for us, this gives us the opportunity to reach to more fans. We saw when we did the recent events in Cyprus and Bulgaria the thirst and interest in these environments for top-level basketball. So the fact now that we will be visiting through our regular season games new countries, new destinations, I think this is also a clear message to the fans that basketball is not played in a handful of countries or by a dozen clubs. Basketball in Europe is played by hundreds of clubs, and that, of course, encompasses a great number of fans. When it comes to the second part of the question regarding the future, for us, our focus is on the future of the Basketball Champions League, on how we will grow the competition, how we will make the conditions offered to our clubs even better. As you are aware, in the start of 2020, we announced a partnership with an investment group from the United States, and that again is in line of our desire to continue to grow the competition, to continue to offer to clubs the best possible conditions, and we were very happy over the last months to also see some clubs that had in the past looked at the Basketball Champions League as an opportunity but not committed to it, now making the move and committing to playing the Basketball Champions League. And again, that is for us the strongest message, because it is a demonstration of the interest that the Basketball Champions League is generating around Europe and of the conditions that we offer to our clubs. As I often say, in this case, we are proposing a different model. Our friends in the EuroLeague, in ECA, they have a different philosophy than us. That's not necessarily good or bad. One is not better than the other, it's just different. We believe very much on the importance of the growth of the game of basketball. I think that goes hand in hand with the fact that FIBA remains the key stakeholder in the Basketball Champions League, so it's inherent to its obligation to develop the game of basketball. So the fact that we are offering this opportunity to as many players, as many teams around Europe, I think that goes hand in hand with our DNA, with our culture. So of course, our philosophy is very much linked to strengthening the national leagues, supporting the national leagues, helping more and more clubs work professionally, and we believe that over the next years, this sort of framework will allow us to grow the competition even more. We fully respect that there's another philosophy out there that says it is all about the big brands, it's about a handful of clubs, and national teams or leagues are not that relevant, and that's, again, a different philosophy. It's all about how one wants to approach the competition. And for us, we believe that our vision, our mission, our DNA, as I said, is gaining more and more credibility, because our competition is gaining more credibility. So the model, the alternative, the philosophy that we are proposing is also gaining more traction.
Thank you. Next question, please.
You sort of touched upon this one when you mentioned the Spanish teams, but we're going to look at it from a different perspective. The question comes from Ennio Borghesan from Sportando in Italy. Spanish teams have been among the protagonists of this edition of the BCL, and we've also seen different teams compete at the highest level in ACB. how do you feel BCL has contributed to the rising of the teams like Burgos, Zaragoza, and a veteran team like Tenerife?
This is actually an interesting question because we had this discussion yesterday in the arena with the ACB representatives that are here on site. The ACB is a very good example of how the BCL has grown over the last years, taking into account that the ACB is arguably one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive league in Europe. We started the Basketball Champions League in 2016, so we are just 4 young years old. And at that time, we just had one Spanish team playing the competition. It was Iberostar Tenerife. As I mentioned before, we now have 8 teams that have applied, and we could only offer 4 spots to them. So this tremendous increase of interest over the last years is certainly due to the fact that these teams have realized that the BCL does offer this opportunity to shine at the European forum through the Basketball Champions League. Let's not forget that the ACB is a shareholder of the Basketball Champions League, along with many other leagues and ULEB around Europe. So for us, it is of relevance to support, to collaborate, and to strengthen this partnership. But when we speak now about the specific clubs that we have here, and we have had other clubs like Murcia that have also reached the pinnacle event of our competition, I think teams like Burgos are a very good example. It is a team that rose through the ranks of the Spanish system over the last years, gaining its promotion from Liga Oro to the ACB, and then earning the right to participate in the Basketball Champions League because of its success in the domestic competition. So that allows them to now be here, be in the competition, and even play for this impressive trophy. And that is part of our mission. It is our goal to give opportunities to clubs like Burgos or Murcia or Zaragoza, to Tenerife. I'm talking about the Spanish clubs that we have recently had, and not look necessarily at other factors. Of course, we want a good arena, but we are not imposing very strict requirements beyond what is essential for a very good TV production, because we want to give these clubs the opportunity to grow and to develop. And we do not look at the brand, we look at the results on the court. And I was speaking this morning with the president of Tenerife, Felix Hernandez, and Tenerife, I think, is a very good example of a club that through the Basketball Champions League has grown significantly. It is now one of the best teams in the ACB. It is continuously competing for the top positions, and I believe that their DNA, their development has been helped by the Basketball Champions League in a similar and reciprocal manner as their participation into the Basketball Champions League. As ambassadors of the Basketball Champions League in Spain, they have also greatly contributed in our positioning in the Spanish league. So I think the collaboration and the positioning of the BCL in Spain is indicative of our vision and our mission for the competition.
Thank you. The next up is another question in Greek. This one is from Menelaos Sebastiadis. Το νέο φορμάτ έδειξε αντανακλαστικά και προσαρμογή στις συνθήκες εποχής, αλλά μειώνει και τα εγγυημένα μάτς των ομάδων. Υπήρξαν κάποιες ενστάσεις από μέρους τους, όπως το Συλλόγο ή εισπράξατε κατανόηση. So the question is, the new format, he refers to the recent change made to the regular season groups, show that the competition can adapt very well to these conditions of the times. But on the other hand, it's also decreasing the guaranteed income of the clubs. So were there any objections from the part of the clubs, or were they understanding with the decision?
We spoke to all 32 clubs in anticipation of this change of format, because This is a competition where we value the view of the clubs and of the leagues around the table. Everyone is aware of the challenges. Some clubs that have already had to organize international games, they are even more aware of the difficulties. Let's not forget that in middle of September we had to still play 2 games, Tenerife Ostende and Dijon Nizhny, in order to just conclude the round of 16. And these 2 games alone took significant effort to prepare. So all the clubs are living in the real world. They realize that traveling is not going to be simple, that having to plan weekly games when at the same time they also have to look at possible switches or postponements of games, whether these are international or domestic. They are fully aware that such a change was essential, and everybody was extremely appreciative of this. As I said before, us, the board, the clubs, we all started this process of changing the format with one key mission, not just to start to finish the season, but to finish it, to make sure that we can reach the end. It is factually true that the number of games that are guaranteed has decreased. From 7 home games we have gone down to 3. Also this means from 7 traveling expeditions, clubs now have to organize only 3, so there is a level of relaxation in that manner. But because we are aware that the inventory of games has decreased, we are now into discussions about examining different options for the round of 16 onwards in order perhaps to balance the current decrease of games. But regarding top 16, this is something that we want to take a little bit of a step back, have an impression of what's going to happen over the next weeks and months in Europe, especially as we enter the winter season in the northern hemisphere, and all the experts with the World Health Organization, with whom we are regularly talking, are also very conscious and cautious about what's going to happen over the next week. So we also need to know what that might imply. So for the time being, we have focused on the change of format in the regular season, where indeed there is a significant decrease in the number of games, and then we will see how we can compensate in order at the end for the number of games, not necessarily for all the clubs, but for a vast majority of them will still remain considerable.
Thank you. Next question, please.
This one's from Marko Ljubomirovic from RTS in Serbia. It's a bit more specific about the future of the BCL. Where do you see BCL in 5 years from now? What would you consider as a success?
5 years. Okay. Now we're trying to organize the next 5 months. But I think from day one, when we started the competition, I've always said, this is a marathon. We are here for the long run. We are here to build the foundation of a competition that will remain attractive to the clubs, because at the end, everything that we do on a daily business, it is for the clubs. The competition is organized by the clubs via the participation of the leagues, because again, since we don't have guaranteed clubs that participate every year, we could only have a foundation and a government that is linked to the leagues that are the institutional bodies. So we have always put in place a plan that is linked to the growth of the competition. When we started, we said, okay, first 3 years is all about establishing ourselves, gaining credibility, because it's never easy to start a competition from scratch, especially in a saturated environment such as the one that we have in European basketball. It's not automatic, it's not simple, it's certainly not easy. So what we have set as a mission is that for the first 3 years, we establish the Basketball Champions League, we get to introduce ourselves and slowly create a credible brand. Our initial plan, and this came into fruition this year, was that after year 3, we would go out into the market and seek investor partners in order to take us to that next level. And we have achieved that with a partnership with our American friends at GCDH, which allows us to move ahead and to look into the future with a great optimism, always keeping in mind the essential question that exists in European basketball: how do we bridge the enormous popularity of the game with the very low commercial value that European club basketball generates? So that is a question that nobody has been able to answer so far, and we hope that through our efforts we will be able to tackle it. When we speak about the future, it is now all about solidifying the position of the Basketball Champions League. It is all about generating value. It is all about setting up the best possible conditions for our clubs to be able to participate in, and at the end, as we always say, try to propose a model that challenges and questions the European landscape environment in view of creating an overall setup that is beneficial for all clubs that play basketball in Europe.
Thank you. Next up is another question in Greek. This one is from Marius Vargas. Με δεδομένη την αλλαγή του φορμάτ και τα λιγότερα μάτς, αλλάζει ο γενικός σχεδιασμός του BCL και σε οικονομικό επίπεδο την προσωπική σεζόν. The question was, following the change of the regular season format and the fact there's a reduction in the number of games, does it change the financial planning of the BCL in this coming season?
Although everyone accepts that COVID-19 has had a significant and overwhelming impact on the financials of all sport organizations around the world. It's not just impacting, obviously, the Basketball Champions League. For us, maintaining the current conditions has been an essential foundation of the new season. Continuing and delivering the Final Eight and awarding as of Sunday night, not just this trophy, but the prize money that will go to all the teams unhindered from what was promised. So the winner will go home with 1 million euros. This is in line with our commitment to continue to support the clubs financially. We have not deviated €1 from our original promises, and in today's world, when everybody's making reductions, that is almost an increase if you look at it in absolute numbers. And our commitment to the clubs for the next season, even though the number of games decreases, is that the clubs will be receiving the same amount, because again, our commitment is that clubs need to be supported, need to be strengthened, need to be made to feel that playing in a European competition should never be a burden, it should be a plus. I remain astonished at the fact that so many clubs at the top level of European basketball all across Europe continue to lose significant amounts of money. This makes no commercial sense, and certainly this is not a viable business model. So we need, all of us involved in the game of basketball, need to assess that and need to address that, because we also saw, and we have to be realistic, how the foundation is crumbling when we were not able, all of us collectively, to have games for a few weeks. So one can imagine that if this crisis has had such a financial impact on the entire sports industry, we, all of us working in this environment, need to assess that, need to find other sources of revenue, need to deviate our interests. So from our side, when it comes to the microcosm of the Basketball Champions League, we will not be changing anything, because again, our commitment is to continue to strengthen and to grow the competition and to demonstrate to our clubs our vision in that. But speaking on a more general point of view, it is a sounding warning that the structure and the business model in European basketball requires reassessment. That's very clear, and let's hope that lessons learned from COVID-19 pandemic will be used by all stakeholders in a positive manner in order to address this challenging process.
Thank you. Next question, please.
This turns out to be a follow-up of that question because Predrag Saric from Sportski Žurnal in Serbia asked how important is the financial stability for the newcomers in the league?
I think, as I said before, playing in Europe should be a plus. It should be not just a pleasure on the court, but also a benefit in the club's P&L. This is what, in my simple approach, you do very well in your domestic competition. You are rewarded both in terms of competitiveness, but also in terms of financial benefits by going to the next level. Winning the title in your country should not put you under pressure to lose money next year. This makes no sense. We want teams to go win their titles so that they can then play in a European competition and continue to grow, to generate revenue and interest and fans and sponsors and the whole marketplace. So for us, this remains essential. We realize that it is essential for many clubs because of the uniqueness of this season's approach, where again we set the qualification rounds in two mini tournaments. We saw that a lot of clubs invested in bringing top players to this event with the hope that they would qualify to the Basketball Champions League. And that for us is a sound approach, because clubs do see that if they make that next step, if they achieve to qualify in the regular season of the Basketball Champions League, there are financial benefits. So it is clear that these are essential. Of course, it varies from club to club. For some clubs, it represents a significant part of their budget. For some others, a less significant part. But it is clear that all the teams that play in the Basketball Champions League, when they reach the top and they earn that 1 million, they certainly have a significant improvement in their overall P&L. And this, I think, should go without saying. A club should not win a top European prize and have no significant impact on its budget.
Thank you. Next up is another great question. This one is a bit longer, so please bear with us for a second. It's from Sotiris Vetakis. Θα ήθελα να μπορούσατε να μας πείτε κάποια από τα ωφέλη που έχει ήδη αποφέρει η συμφωνία με την GCPH ή έστω κάποια από τα πλάνα που έχετε από κοινού μέσω της εταιρείας που δημιουργήσατε μαζί. Δηλαδή, τι είδους επένδυση έχει γίνει, πώς εξοπλίζεται ή σκοπεύει να εξοπλίσει από την πλευρά της GCPH στη συμφωνία. Γενικώς, οποιαδήποτε εικόνα μπορείτε να μας δώσετε για την ανάπτυξη του BCL μέσω αυτής της στρατηγικής συμφωνίας. So the question is, could you please give us could you please refer to some of the benefits and gains that your agreement with GCPH has already had, or at least some of the plans that you've made together, and more specifically, what kind of investment has been made, how is it being used, and or how do you plan to make use of it, both from your side and from the side of the GCPH. In general, any more specific picture you can give us about the development of the BCL through this strategic partnership.
Okay. What we have found in our American friends and in the creation of GCPH is not just an investor in the traditional sense, where somebody puts in a specific amount and expects a return of 5, 10, 20% over the next years. I think that this is not in line with what FIBA would consider in terms of a partnership. What we have found and what we have sought with GCPH is an equity partner. He is someone that has a stake in the Basketball Champions League, that has a percentage in the Basketball Champions League, and grow the competition along the lines that we have already described. So it's not a short-term partnership, it's not a short-term collaboration, it is something that falls in place over a much wider spectrum. And what I think is important to explain here is that we are not talking now just about the Basketball Champions League. We are here in Athens talking about the Final 8 of the Basketball Champions League. We are talking about this impressive trophy, but when we speak about our collaboration with GCBH, we're not just talking about the Basketball Champions League. Last September, in the FIBA World Congress in Beijing, at the opening of the FIBA World Cup, during that Congress, one of the key missions of FIBA was introduced, along with some other pillars for the next cycle of 5 years. And one pillar that clearly affects us is one labeled the strengthening of club competitions around the world. So FIBA has now taken a very conscientious strategic decision to grow the club competitions around the world. So if we take a step back from what we are currently enjoying here, which is the BCL Final 8, and we look at the efforts that are being done by FIBA all across the world, we will see that we had the BCL that started in 2016. Last October, we had the BCLA, our little cousin in Latin America, the Basketball Champions League Americas, also being inaugurated. We announced the partnership with the NBA for the creation of the Basketball African League. We recently announced the establishment of EASL, the East Asia Champions League. We have the FIBA Asia Champions Cup that is growing in Asia. So all of these are the continental club competitions that are now being organized. And of course, at the very top of that, we have the revamped FIBA Intercontinental Cup. And as you are well aware, the FIBA Intercontinental Cup is the pinnacle event for club world basketball. We have now developed it into one competition that includes continental champions and, most importantly for us, the participants of the NBA D-League. So again, a very clear demonstration of our collaboration with the NBA. So when GCBH came into partnership with FIBA, yes, the focus right now is on the Basketball Champions League, because that is the competition where significant resources and energy has been given. But the approach and the partnership covers this inclusive vision about club competitions around the world. Our American friends visited the Intercontinental Cup in Tenerife last February, because that's also an event where they have significant input into how we grow it and how we develop it. So again, this partnership is linked to the greater growth and support of club competitions around the world, from the continental to the intercontinental. So our common mission and vision is to continue to support that, and what the expertise of this investor group brings. It is not just money. I think in today's world, sometimes money is easier to find than expertise, and we have on our side great industry leaders on the financial sector, on the commercial sector, on the media sector, and together now we are defining the strategy for the growth and for the improvement of club competitions around the world, again, in line with the strengthening of our competition. So again, we're not talking about a one-off investment that is meant to provide a specific return. We have not sold media or commercial rights. We have an equity partner. We have someone that has a stake in FIBA club competitions, and together we will continue to grow this process.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Two questions actually coming from Carmelo Palacios, Diario de Burgos. When you came to Burgos a year ago, could you imagine that San Pablo will be in the final? And the other one is kind of connected. What does it say about the competition that a team coming from the qualifying ground makes it all the way to the title game?
Sure. You see, we haven't. I have not realized this. Wow. Because we had a team a couple of years ago that came from the qualification rounds all the way to the Final Four, and Belize. But now, I guess it's the first time a team from the qualification rounds goes to the finals. Nice story. Good. So, when I went to Burgos, I was impressed by the enthusiasm that Felix, the president, and everybody around the club demonstrated. And it is true, and Felix reminded me this yesterday, that when we met back there, they said, we are coming to the BCL in order to win it. And it's great to see this optimism and this targeting from our clubs. And it's certainly a pleasure to have Burgos in our competition over the last months, and to see them now reach all the way to the final. I think from a strategic or from a BCL fundamental philosophical point of view, Burgos, like many other clubs have in the past, demonstrates exactly what we were saying before, that everybody has a chance when they compete in the Basketball Champions League. And I think that's something that more and more clubs are realizing, and I think this is what makes the BCL more and more attractive to a lot of the clubs, because they realize that this is a competition where everybody has the chance to fight for this trophy. And I think that's essential when we speak about sports. And what has really impressed me about Burgos is the enthusiasm and the commitment of the entire community to basketball. We see how many people have traveled from Burgos here, and again, this is an event where fans are not allowed. We came into an agreement that each team would get a limited number of invitations to attend the game, and Burgos was probably the only one outside of the host team that used the entire allocation of the 4 teams that are now in the final. So that's indicative of the interest that exists in Burgos, of the enthusiasm that was created when the team joined the Basketball Champions League. Let's not forget that they hold the record for attendance in a BCL regular season game with a full house of more than 9,000 spectators. So it is a club that certainly fits our DNA, and we believe that our collaboration with them has been one that has supported them, has helped them, and has put Burgos on the basketball map for good.
Thank you. Next question, please.
This one came in from Dražen Brajdić from Večernji List in Croatia. As one of the main reasons why they do not apply for the BCL, Croatian clubs have been stating the financial difficulties, especially when it comes to travel. Would you consider forming some kind of a solidarity fund which would help the less powerful clubs who earn their spot in the BCL to participate in the competition, of course, until they become financially more stable?
We've had a lot of discussions with Croatian clubs about their participation in the Basketball Champions League, and it is a very important basketball country historically, and it is one that we're in close collaboration with. Of course, the decision of certain clubs to play in the ABA League, and of course the commitment to play in the domestic competitions renders the ability to also compete in the Basketball Champions League, understandably difficult. But that's something that has to be discussed, let's say, at the national level, and what sort of decisions the clubs do take. From our side, when it comes to the financial support, as is well known, we provide a specific amount to any club that plays the regular season. There is a minimum guaranteed amount, and then of course these amounts increase linked to the club's success in the following round. So we are not in a position to make a specific financial plan for teams of one country, but we are aware of the challenges in Croatia, and we do hope that in the future we will have Croatian teams participate in our competition, because again, as I said, we are talking about a very important basketball country in Europe.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Okay, this one's for us.
Okay.
we were in Tenerife, and Tenerife won the title. Then we were in Athens, and AEK won the title. Again, we're in Athens, AEK are in the title game. It seems like statistically hosting the event gives you a great chance to win it. Have you considered organizing the final tournament in a neutral event, like neutral grounds?
It's a good point. Again, we have a short sample, but we are aware of this. We were in Antwerp. Virtus Bologna won the title, so it's still a very short sample, but we have to be aware of the fact that, looking at it from the reverse point, to organize the Champions League, the Final Four, means you are among the best teams, because you've reached the top four. So automatically you start with a 25% chance when you host the event. And then that, when you look at it from a historical point of view, event hosted in Athens won by AEK, or event hosted in Tenerife won by Tenerife. Historians in the future will look at this a little bit awkwardly, because they might not know the process of selecting the host, because other competitions in all sports, they have a different hosting process. But when you look at our competition, the chances are significant that the host will win, because they are among the best teams in the competition. That being said, aside, for us, hosting the event in a city where the home team participates remains important in order to safeguard one of the points that was mentioned before, the interest, the commitment, and the support of the local environment. We are aware of the status of the Basketball Champions League. We are not the UEFA Champions League, we are not the Super Bowl. That can go to any destination and fill the arena, no matter the participants. And we have seen how difficult it has been in Europe to go to neutral cities, and even though there might be a lot of sports interest in that city, it's not always easy to fill up the arenas when the home team does not participate. So for us, right now, our interest is to continue going in a destination where we know that we would have the local support and interest. This might change, of course, in the future. And trust me, from an organization, from a pure organizational operational point of view, that's not simple, because we find out the host of the event a few weeks before we have to organize it. From a pure operational point of view, it would be a lot simpler today to announce that next May we will go to X city, because that allows the operations team to really focus on organizing the event there. But then we take a significant risk on the level of collaboration or the level of interest that it might generate. And again, as I said before, we are aware we do not walk on a different planet, that very, very few events have full arenas irrespective of the participants. And I can probably mentioned the Super Bowl and the UEFA Champions League, even the UEFA Europa League. Sometimes, from my previous life, we went to cities that, the arena, the stadium at the time was not full because there was not a lot of local interest. So we are aware of this. For the time being, we keep this model, but as you have seen, the BCL is able to adapt, to adjust, and to be flexible if it has to be, and adapt its strategy accordingly. But for the time being, we're following this model.
Thank you very much, Mr. Komnenos. There were several overlapping questions, of course, especially on the three topics of the financial implications on the clubs from COVID-19, the bubble concept, and the GCPH partnership. But of course, we have covered all those questions, so we're not reading out every single separate question. That said, I think you have covered all the topics that the media have touched on, but if maybe you feel that you wanted to make a closing statement, maybe something that we didn't touch on.
Well, you mentioned the bubble, and that's not something that we specifically discussed, and I think it's important to highlight and perhaps to share our experience. It is not easy to organize such an event. On many fronts, we were walking into a completely new environment. We have not done this before, not many sports organizations have, so we collaborated very closely with the Spanish League, the German League, with the NBA that are doing similar models and obviously trying to replicate as much as possible. So what we do have here in Athens, I would not call it a bubble as such, because we have to be transparent. It is not absolutely a totally sanitized environment because of the duration of the competition. What the ASEVED did, or what the BDL did in Germany, or what the NBA did, was a controlled bubble because it lasted for a much longer period, a minimum of 3 weeks, which means that the teams can arrive, be in isolation in the hotel, so everybody knows that there has not been contact with third parties, then start doing the testing, and then continue testing while remaining in the controlled environment. Excuse me. What we have here, because of the short duration, is an official hotel where everybody that has joined from the participating teams has done 2 tests prior to arriving to Athens, and then has had a very controlled movement from within the hotel when it comes to rooms, when it comes to elevators, when it comes to dining rooms, when it comes to buses, and to and from the arena. But again, we are aware of the challenges when we have such a short duration and we cannot provide an absolute and totally sterilized bubble environment. So we do call it the official hotel with segregation and dedicated access routes. It was not easy, and as we speak with other leagues, other colleagues, other organizers, we realize that this might become more and more the norm in sports over the next weeks and months, but we also acknowledge that some of the inherent problems remain. Let's not forget that teams, get on a plane to come here and get on a plane to return home. So we are aware that there is a level of exposure, as is the situation of everyone of us moving in and out in our daily lives. But we have taken extensive efforts. We have had representatives of the FIBA Medical Committee here implementing a very rigorous protocol that has been put in place, and all those of you that have been in the arena, you have seen the measures. We take the temperature, we sanitize everyone that goes into the arena, everybody that goes into the arena, from the volunteers to the floor cleaners. They have been tested over the last week. So again, we have put the most complex mechanisms in place, again, within the confines of a 5-day-long tournament. But it has not been easy, but it has certainly been a great learning experience on how to organize events in 2020.
Thank you very much for your time. I think this concludes the most peculiar media roundtable you've had during your tenure as BCL CEO.
Sorry?
This concludes the most peculiar media roundtable you've had during your tenure as BCL CEO.
That's for sure.
Hopefully, the next one will be under normal circumstances and with physical presence of the media in the room. Thank you very much.
Let's keep our fingers crossed. Thank you very much to all of those that participated.
Thank you, and goodbye from Athens, and we hope you enjoy the big final of the Basketball Champions League 2019-2020 season tomorrow between AEK and Ereda San Pablo.